So at the beginning of this story, we can see a man named Hae-jun. We learn that he is a very honest and brave officer of the Busan police. But for the past few days, he has been under a lot of stress. The biggest reason for the stress was some recent cases that he was trying his absolute best to solve. But even after doing all this, he couldn't make any progress. Actually, he couldn't understand where to start the case and where to end it, and who the criminal might be. And while thinking about all these matters, at one point he developed a terrible condition. He stopped being able to sleep at night. Although Hae-jun was a married person, his wife Hae-won worked in another city. But despite all the busyness, she would come once a week to meet with Hae-jun. And although they both lived quite far from each other, their hearts were always close to each other. The bond between them was very beautiful. Then Hae-jun and his colleague Soo-won get the news that a retired immigration officer named Ki Do-soo's body was found at the bottom of a mountain. So they quickly rush to the body. Now after seeing the situation here, Hae-jun thinks that maybe Do-soo's death happened from falling down the mountain because he was trying to go hiking. But what was the real cause of his death? The police had to find that out. Now when Hae-jun starts investigating, he finds Do-soo's mobile phone with him. And on the phone's wallpaper, he finds a picture of him with a very beautiful young woman. After seeing this, Hae-jun thought this might be his daughter. But actually when that woman comes here to identify the body, then he learns that this wasn't actually his daughter. This is his wife, Seo-rae. But the most shocking thing was that she didn't care at all about her husband's death. I mean, she didn't feel any pain. In fact, she didn't even fake cry a little. Later, during the interrogation, Hae-jun notices a bandage on Seo-rae's hand, which makes him a bit suspicious of her. That's why he starts questioning her more intensively. But during this questioning, Seo-rae suddenly says that my husband got exactly the kind of death he wanted. So I have no regrets about it. After hearing this, Hae-jun becomes completely shocked. Because he couldn't understand why she was saying all these things. And then Seo-rae tells him that actually my husband was a hiker. He always wanted to die while climbing mountains. And his death happened exactly like that, so I don't have any regrets about it. Now, whatever may happen, she comes first on the police's suspect list. That's why the police make her take a medical test. And through the medical test, the police find out that there were countless scars on her body, through which it can be easily guessed that maybe her husband used to beat her constantly, and maybe she killed her husband to escape from his hands. When Hae-jun was investigating Seo-rae, he showed her those pictures of her husband that he had taken by going to the spot himself. Then, without wanting to, a smile appears on Seo-rae's face, and after seeing this, all the police officers present there become shocked. But Hae-jun also knew very well that every person reacts differently in every situation. Now maybe Seo-rae is feeling sad about it in her heart, but a smile has appeared on her face. So, from the next morning, Hae-jun starts surveillance on Seo-rae with his colleague. And they find out that Seo-rae is actually a caretaker nurse who takes care of various elderly people for a company. And through this investigation, they also find out that Seo-rae is actually the best nurse in this city. That's why Hae-jun couldn't figure out how she could murder her husband. Later, Hae-jun gets news that another person's blood traces were found between Ki Do-soo's fingers. As soon as they hear this, their first suspicion falls on Seo-rae. That's why the next morning, to take Seo-rae's blood sample, she is quickly called to the hospital. And meanwhile, in Hae-jun's absence, his colleague goes to meet that elderly woman whose caretaking Seo-rae was doing. But here, after questioning the elderly woman, he could hear nothing but praise for Seo-rae. Besides, this elderly woman was telling him that Seo-rae even brought her a phone, so she could listen to music. And through the CCTV footage, he could clearly see that on the day her husband died, she was doing caretaking in this woman's room. Meanwhile, after giving the blood sample, even before the result comes, Seo-rae tells Hae-jun that actually the blood traces found on Ki Do-soo's hands were her own blood. Then she explains everything clearly to him. She tells him that she's not fully Korean, she's of Chinese descent, so she couldn't speak Korean very well, which caused constant fights with her husband. Besides, her husband always wanted to go hiking with her, but she didn't like any of these things at all. That's why sometimes he would even lay hands on her. But when she was telling all these things, she was even smiling occasionally. And Hae-jun couldn't tolerate these things at all. But he had already fallen in love with her attitude. So he brings her food, gives her a bandage to put on her hand. But when his colleagues could see all these things from a distance, they were very angry. Because they couldn't understand how Hae-jun could get so close to a murder suspect. Later, through investigation, Hae-jun finds out that in the past few years, about 40 immigrants were detained at the Korean border, among whom Seo-rae was one. But the most interesting thing is that except for Seo-rae, all the other immigrants were sent back to China. So Hae-jun comes and asks Seo-rae what actually happened that everyone except you was sent back. Then Seo-rae explains everything clearly to him. She says that her grandfather was a soldier who, despite being a Japanese soldier during Korea's freedom fighting, fought on Korea's side. And considering all these things, the immigration officer gave her permission to stay here. Then Seo-rae shows all the legal documents in front of him so that she can prove that everything she has said so far is true. Then when she leaves from there, we can see Hae-jun's colleague was extremely angry at him. He was telling him that the main and only suspect in this case is Seo-rae. How can you get so close to a suspect? Then Hae-jun says no, it's not like that. Actually, we don't have much evidence against her, so we can't really do anything else to her. That's why I was behaving very nicely with her. After this, every day for 24 hours, Hae-jun starts surveillance on Seo-rae. He was doing surveillance in such a way that he would spend the whole night in front of her house. Sometimes he would even fall asleep in his car. One day when he was sleeping in the car, the next morning Seo-rae catches him sleeping in the car. So first she clicks his picture. Then she very sweetly says good morning and wakes him up. And through all these things, she suspects that maybe Hae-jun is surveilling her. So the next day in her garden, she intentionally talks to her cat so that Hae-jun can hear. She tells it that actually, I haven't seen such a handsome and honest police officer like Hae-jun in the police department till now. I have actually fallen in love with him. And after hearing all these things, Hae-jun becomes quite happy inside. Actually, although Hae-jun was honestly investigating this case, and he always wanted to find the killer by any means, he also wanted this in his heart, that Seo-rae doesn't turn out to be her husband's killer. So the next morning, Hae-jun's colleagues give Hae-jun shocking information about Seo-rae. Actually, he finds out that Seo-rae is a wanted criminal from China. I mean, she had a case against her for killing her grandmother. To escape from there, she fled to Korea. So to verify the truth of this matter, Hae-jun quickly comes to Seo-rae's house. And here, Seo-rae again explains everything clearly to him. She says actually her grandmother had a disease that had no cure in the world. So her grandmother was living in a lot of pain. She was in such a position that she could neither live nor die. She would always pray for death. And I couldn't bear these sufferings at all. Since I am a nurse, I know very well that with the help of a medicine, I could free her from this agony forever. So finally, I was forced to make this difficult decision. But a case was filed against me for all these things. That's why I became a wanted criminal. Actually, what could I gain by killing such an old person like my grandmother? Then Seo-rae also reads some letters addressed to her husband to Hae-jun, where a man was repeatedly threatening him. That man was saying that he took money and gave some Chinese people permission to stay in Korea, and he would definitely expose his mask one day. Now, maybe unable to bear all these threats, at some point he jumped from the mountain and committed suicide. That's also possible. Then Seo-rae tells him that actually when he caught me at the Korean border, he gave me permission to stay in Korea on the condition that I would marry him. That's why finally I was forced to marry him. And there was a huge age difference between him and me. So the next morning while investigating, Hae-jun gets news that a letter has arrived at Ki Do-soo's office. When he goes there, he finds out this letter was a suicide note, through which it becomes clear that Ki Do-soo really did commit suicide. So this case is completely closed here. And Hae-jun gives all of Ki Do-soo's belongings to his wife Seo-rae. Now although this case has ended here, the story has just begun. Because now they both had become very close. They had become each other's friends. So sometimes they would meet each other very easily. We can see Hae-jun preparing Korean food in Chinese style for Seo-rae. And on the other hand, when Seo-rae finds out that Hae-jun has a sleeping disorder, she goes to his study room and burns all the pictures of those old unsolved cases. Because all these cases were the reason why he couldn't sleep at all. Besides, she goes to his room and teaches him some techniques to fall asleep quickly. Using these techniques, finally after a few months, Hae-jun had a peaceful sleep. And through all these things, he becomes even more attracted to Seo-rae. He becomes a fan of hers. They liked each other's company very much. They loved being with each other. Although they didn't have any physical relationship, mentally they had become connected to each other. Anyway, the next morning, Hae-jun comes to the house of that elderly woman whose caretaking Seo-rae used to do. Actually, he had come here a bit early today. Seo-rae hasn't been able to come to this elderly woman's house yet. So when Hae-jun sees this woman trying to play music on her mobile, but she couldn't press the button, he decides to help her. But when he takes the mobile in his hands, his attention goes to some already opened apps, and after seeing these apps, he becomes completely shocked. He finds such an app here through which he learns that a few days ago this elderly woman had traveled a full 120 kilometers, and the most shocking thing was this incident happened on the day when Seo Rai's husband Ki Du-soo died. Then Hae-jun becomes very curious and asks this elderly woman if she can walk so much even at this age. Then this elderly woman tells him that I haven't gotten up from this bed for 6 months. How can I walk? And after hearing this, Hae-jun remembers that actually Seo Rai had exactly the same kind of mobile. Actually, she bought 2 identical mobiles. She gifted one to the grandmother, and she started using the other one herself. And from here, everything starts becoming clear to Hae-jun. What the real game was, he understands that clearly. Here Hae-jun also finds out that there are some cameras in front of this building. But there are no cameras at the back of the building. That's why Jang starts to imagine all the scenarios himself about what actually happened that day. Actually, Jang was speculating that maybe the incident happened like this. Like in the morning, Jang came to this old woman's house and first exchanged her mobile phone so that the police couldn't track her location through it for what she was about to do next. Then she probably went out through the back window and took another route to reach the place where her husband was hiking, and maybe later, as soon as she got the chance, she pushed her husband down from the top of the mountain, which caused her husband's death. Now, to confirm all these things, Jang also goes out through the back of that building and comes straight to that mountain through another route, and when he reaches the top of the mountain, he can see that he has covered exactly the same distance that was shown on that old woman's mobile phone. And through all these things, Jang clearly understands that actually Seo Rai herself had murdered her husband. I mean, this case is completely solved, and he's also able to identify the real culprit. But even after knowing all this, Jang still doesn't inform his senior about this matter. Instead, he comes to meet Seo Rai, because he wanted to hear everything from Seo Rai's mouth first. He goes to Seo Rai's house and directly asks her this question first. Why did you kill your husband? And we can see that Seo Rai also confesses everything in front of him. She says that I killed my husband because he used to torture me constantly. He hit every part of my body. Besides, sometimes he would torture me by not giving me food. Even after enduring so much pain, I couldn't even go to the police to complain because I was Chinese. My complaint would never be accepted in Korea. Besides, he also threatened me that if I even tried to complain to the police, then he would send me back to China. And because of all these things, I endured such brutal torture for so many months. But now my patience has run out. That's why finally one day, to get freedom from all these things, she made a master plan and killed her husband. Actually, when Seo Rai was telling all these things to Hae-jun, she had turned on the phone recording, so that if Hae-jun gave any wrong answer after hearing these, she could use that against him. But now Hae-jun wasn't fooled by Seo Rai's enchanting face and mysterious smile at all. He had become completely alert. He didn't want to make any mistake. He knew that Seo Rai could do anything to stay in Korea, even destroy him. That's why he stood there quietly. And when Seo Rai saw that her plan wasn't working, she started acting romantic in front of him. She told him that even though I killed someone, I was forced to do it. I had no other option. Besides, I know very well that now I love you with all my heart. And I don't want to stay away from you in any way. But after hearing all these things, Hae-jun felt a little sympathy for her. That's why he told her that actually only one piece of evidence has been found against you so far, and that is that old woman's phone. So destroy that mobile as quickly as possible, and I made the biggest mistake of my life by getting so close to you. But now I don't want to continue this relationship anymore. I want to end this relationship right here. After saying this much, he left Seo Rai forever and walked away from there. Then we are shown a scene 1 whole year later. We can see that now Hae-jun's posting has been transferred to another city. He now lived with his wife Yoongun. But his insomnia had gotten much worse, the main reason behind which was probably that betrayal given by Seo Rai. Meanwhile, we can see Seo Rai has married someone else. But now a stranger had come into her house and was bothering her. Actually, this man's name was Dookie. Actually, Seo Rai's husband was a huge fraud. He had stolen billions of Dookie's money and run away. That's why Dookie had ended up on the streets. He couldn't even afford his mother's treatment now. That's why he beat up Seo Rai and threatened her, saying that if her husband doesn't return his money, then he would kill her. And a few months later, Seo Rai moved with her husband from this city to the city where Hae-jun was. Actually, it seemed like maybe Seo-rae already knew Hae-jun's address. That's why she intentionally married a man from that area where Hae-jun lived, so that she could meet him there at some point. And finally, after coming to this city, one day they ran into each other at the market. Actually, Hae-jun was with his wife Yoongun then, and Seo-rae came in front of them with her husband Ho-shin. Seo-rae just said hi and hello there, but Hae-jun 436 was completely shocked. He couldn't understand what to do. Maybe there was still some affection for her left in his heart. Then all four of them exchanged phone numbers, and somehow left from there. But interestingly, that day Seo-rae's husband Ho-shin called Hae-jun's wife Yoongun, but because she was busy, she couldn't pick up the call. And the next morning, Hae-jun got a murder case. He found out that a man had been killed. So when he quickly went there to investigate, he could see that this corpse wasn't anyone else's. It was Seo-rae's husband Ho-shin. After seeing this, he clearly understood that this time too, maybe Seo-rae had killed her husband. So he quickly went to her and asked her to confess everything. But this time Seo-rae told him completely the opposite, that I didn't do anything this time. Besides, why would I kill my husband? There should be a reason behind it. Then Hae-jun found out from some people that on the day the murder happened, Seo-rae was trying to throw something into the sea. So he quickly goes to Seo-rae and asks her about this matter. Then Seo-rae tells him that actually on the day my husband died, I went to the swimming pool and found his body, which had turned red with blood. All the water in the swimming pool had turned red. So I first cleaned the swimming pool completely, because I knew very well that Hae-jun would investigate this case. And since Hae-jun had a phobia of blood, she cleaned the blood first. Then she also cleaned her husband's body completely and dragged him to another location. Then Seo-rae gives Hae-jun every single detail of the case. But even after all this, Hae-jun couldn't trust Seo-rae anymore. He didn't want to fall into her trap. Then the police also learn about Dookie, the guy who once threatened Seo-rae, saying that if something happened to his mother, then he would kill her husband. And now since his mother has passed away, maybe in a fit of rage he killed Seo-rae's husband. So the police become suspicious of him. They bring him to the station and start interrogating him. But after hearing and seeing everything, Dookie refuses to take responsibility for this murder. He says he didn't commit this murder. But the police could clearly see a motive for the murder, which was such a big fight with him. Now Hae-jun knew very well that if he could somehow recover Ho-shin's phone, then he could solve all the mysteries, meaning the case could be solved. But he also knew very well that maybe Seo-rae had thrown Ho-shin's phone into the ocean. So he sends some divers to search for that phone. Then Seo-rae calls Hae-jun to a snowy place. Then she takes him up a mountain and tells him that actually my grandfather wanted his ashes to be scattered here after death, because before going to China, he spent his entire life in Korea, and most of his time was spent on this mountain. Now since I'm a woman, I can't scatter my grandfather's ashes here even if I want to. So can you do this for me? Please do this for me. Actually, since Hae-jun still had a soft corner for Seo-rae in his heart, he does this task as she requested. He scatters her grandfather's ashes there. And then finally Seo-rae comes from behind and gives Hae-jun the last piece of evidence from her first husband's murder, which was that mobile phone. And now she tells him that if you want, you can reopen the old case and send me to jail. Because you are my only close one. And I love you. I'm leaving this decision up to you. Actually, I don't want you to spend your entire life regretting like this. I can't bear to see your life like this anymore. That's why I'm leaving all these matters up to you and going away from you. And when Hae-jun sees that Seo-rae truly loves him, then he forgets all the past matters and finally, erasing all distances, they both become very close to each other. Then the next morning we can see the police finally found Ho-shin's phone. But when Hae-jun opens the phone, he gets completely shocked. He can see that actually Ho-shin had found out about the affair between him and Seo-rae from a year ago, and all their conversations, all the recordings, even that Seo-rae was behind killing her previous husband. He knew all these things, and even after having all the evidence, Hae-jun didn't arrest Seo-rae and gave her a chance to roam free. All this evidence had also come into his hands. So based on these things, he would always blackmail Seo-rae, and he kept telling her repeatedly that he would share all these matters with Hae-jun's wife. Besides, the conversations with police and documents, he would make them go viral on the internet. And saying these things, he kept blackmailing Seo-rae repeatedly. And that's why maybe just before his death, he called Hae-won for the last time. But being busy, Hae-won couldn't pick up the call. Then after talking with Dookie, Hae-jun clearly learns that when Dookie's mother was admitted to the hospital, Seo-rae had come to meet her. and she intentionally gave him their new address. Meaning this time Seore didn't kill her husband herself. Rather, she gave Dookie her husband's address and had him killed through Dookie's hands. Then Haejun calls Seore and asks, "Why did you do these things?" Then Seore tells him, "I did these things only for you. Because I couldn't bear the thought of your reputation being ruined. Actually, when I went to meet Dookie's mother at the hospital, seeing her condition reminded me of my grandmother. Because she was in a terrible condition just like my grandmother. She could neither die nor live. She was just begging for death. And since I also wanted freedom from Ho Shin, I cleverly killed his mother with medicine at the hospital. And he came and killed my husband to avenge his mother's death." Now it becomes clear here that Seore did all these things. But she did all these things only for her love. She didn't want Haejun's name to be tarnished in any way, because she loved Haejun. And then she tells him that before my death, I had just one wish. That is, when I die, I want to die by drowning in water. So she comes to an ocean shore and digs a big hole and sits in it, so that the waves will slowly fill up this hole, and she will be buried there and die. Although Haejun tracks her location and comes to the ocean shore to save her, even after searching a lot, he couldn't find her. He was running around like a crazy lover, shouting her name. But the reality was that this time, even if he wanted, he couldn't save her anymore, because by the time he reached there, it was too late. And at such an interesting point, whether you call it terrifying or romantic, the entire love story ends right here.